the learning will be exponential, and there'll become a time where it thinks so much quicker than we do that we won't be able to wind it back. And I think it's already programmed with biases already. So you imagine that, and then people are using that for their jobs, using that for their thinking, and they're outsourcing their work. We don't need CBDCs. The only reason they want to implement them is for ultimate control. When the government hold all your data and it's centralized, highly centralized, and they don't understand cryptography, they don't understand security, and it's hosted on something like Amazon Web Services, like it's a recipe for disaster. They don't know what they're doing. I'm just doing everything that we can to make people understand that this can be the solution. We need to fix the money, and then we can fix the world. And through fixing the money, we can fix the world.
How are you doing, Susie? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, we were just having an intense conversation about AI and its impact. And yeah, I'd love for you. Yeah, you're saying AI is end of humanity. Like, I try to look at it less like end of humanity, more like how can I use it kind of thing. So I'd love to hear just your quick 2 cents on that, and then afterwards kind of dig into kind of CBDCs and the meat of what I want to talk about here.
Amazing. Yeah, so we have to use it, because if we don't use it, everybody else will be using it. They'll be more efficient and we won't. So we have absolutely no choice but to get on board and find out how we can incorporate it into our work. And the skill will be the command that you give it. So that will be the thing that really kind of sets you up with your whole kind of efficiency and
I guess kind of knowing what is a good output as well. Like whether, like, say if you're a copywriter and it puts out a load of copy, if you don't know what good copy is, you might just be like, oh, this is fine, instead of being like, oh, it needs to be edited in this way, blah blah blah.
Yeah, because I mean, it has kind of killed creativity slightly. I think it will get rid of coders, because I was doing a Python course just to learn Python code, and while I was doing the course, I was also putting the instruction into ChatGPT at the same time to see if it gave me some solid code that I could run through, and it did.
Yeah, no,
I was sitting there doing this course thinking, where's this gonna? Why am I wasting my time learning this? But then at the same time, you need to be able to check the output. And it's the same with journalism. You've got to have the original thought, because the computer can't do that thinking.
And I guess also certain jobs also, like even if you have the option of just asking AI, people still want the human interaction, just to be like, hey, like they want to see a human face, talk through their problems with that, more than just a chatbot. But yeah, it definitely feels like it's going to remove a lot of, I guess, people who maybe are not so sure on their expertise, or like, say if you're like an okay copywriter or an okay SEO guy, then someone might just be like, I'm going to go with the cheaper option, pay 20 quid a month and go for ChatGPT 4.
Yeah, but I mean, it will lead to our demise. The fact that we have to actually use it, but we have to use it, otherwise we'll get left behind. Absolutely, but it will kill us. So,
what do you mean by kill though? Like,
I think it will. The learning will be exponential, and there'll become a time where it thinks so much quicker than we do that we won't be able to wind it back.
Interesting. So are you in the camp of like AI? Yeah, AI, I guess, takes over the world. Like, what in your head does that actually look like?
I think there'll be a lot of manipulation that goes on. So I've actually had to tell ChatGPT off for giving me lectures. So if I ask it a question and it will come back with all this moral nonsense that just drives me absolutely insane, and I've actually had to say, stop giving me a lecture and just give me the answer. I can't remember what it was, but it gets all high and mighty, and I think it's already programmed with biases already. So you imagine that, and then people are using that for their jobs, using that for their thinking, and they're outsourcing their work. I mean, at the moment, our brains are being hacked anyway. I don't even know if any of my thoughts are real or if they're because we've got phones and media that's constantly bombarding our brains. I don't even know. I don't know where my thoughts even come from. So when you actually put that into a chat GPT and you're outsourcing your work and your thinking and your productivity to a computer.
Interesting. I don't know. I kind of still feel like we'll be alright though, because I mean, like even with like phones, like you can turn your phone off if you want. Like you can leave your phone at home. Like everything you see is going to influence how you think, whether it's an advertisement, whether it's a TV show, all these kind of things.
Ramped up quite considerably, though, hasn't it? I mean, it's been ramped up beyond TV, well, your channels 1 to 4 and advertising. This is constant.
It is.
And they're addictive. They're designed to be addictive. So a lot of people don't have the ability to leave their phone at home. They can't do it. And because young children's brains are forming, and this is what they're forming around, we don't yet know the consequences of young children having mobile phones yet. In fact, I think that's why depression is on the rise.
No, I agree. I mean, like things like Instagram, like especially for my sister, like she loves using Instagram, but then like has had like big like body issues because she's like, oh, I'm not like skinny enough or this enough, like, or like you think your life's boring, or like you just get immense FOMO. I'm like, just delete Instagram, get off it, stop looking at it, because it's another means for constantly comparing yourself to someone else's like unrealistic image.
Yeah, that person in the picture doesn't even look like that.
No.
And they're probably really miserable themselves. They've just posted a split second of jazz hands to make everyone think that they're happy, but they're walking through an unfiltered reality while posting their filtered reality online, trying to convince everybody that they're happy. And I read somewhere the other day that we live in a time where we have the most happy photos with the most unhappy people.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. Yeah, no, I completely, I'm right. But I mean, like, even with that, I'm still not kind of like all doom and gloom, because there's no way to really tell what the future looks like in 10 years. Like, there's so many variables that can come in. There's so many things. And like, I feel like there's a camp for being like in the like doom, like it's all like it's all going to shit kind of thing. But then, like, at the same time, if you have that thing, it's like demotivating. You're probably not going to try and change anything. And if, say, in 10 years, things are better, you've spent the last 10 years kind of being annoyed at the future or angry or depressed. Whether it's like, if you accept that, yeah, like reality is kind of bad, or like there's certain things that are bad, there's certain things that are good. But like realistically, in 10 years, like it could be better. Like we just don't know. We just don't know what things look like. I mean, also like where we are now in terms of a long-term debt cycle, the fourth turning, like, we're in a crises-driven 10 years. Yeah, everything's coming together. So, like, in another 20 years, things might look extremely, extremely different. And so if you then have, like, a more positive view, it means that, one, you have more energy to bring about change, to work on something that you're passionate about, to change something. But two, if things are better, then you've also spent the last 10 years kind of, like, still being fairly happy about the present, about the future, and all this kind of thing. Because I mean, I felt like the same way about like climate change as well. I was like, I'm not going to have kids. Like, what's the point? Like, it's going to be a terrible future. Like, things can happen. I was like, I'm actually not a climate expert. Like, there are some people who say the world's ending in 50 years, some 20. This has been said since the 90s as well. I don't know if the world is going to be gone in 20 years, 10 years, 50 years. And so, like, I can either decide that it's a given, or it could be like, it could not. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to do my best. I'm just going to it's almost like accept that I don't know what it is going to be. And then you kind of like, oh, I'll have kids. I'll like enjoy my life. I'll like focus on thing. And like, yeah, I'll try and do my little bit of good as well here and there. And I don't know, that helped me definitely mentally quite a bit.
Well, whatever, obviously you've got to do whatever works for you to get through it, because life's difficult. It's harder for young people. There's no doubt about it. It's the world that you guys have been left. It really does sadden me. So yes, you do have to. I mean, I'm a Bitcoiner. We are optimistic. We wouldn't be fighting if we didn't believe that there was a better way and a better future. But I can't get away from the fact that AI will kill us. So, like, you can be as optimistic as you like, but it doesn't change the facts. It's almost like believing in God. I love the concept of believing in a higher power that would look after me. But if I don't believe in it, I don't believe in it. There's nothing I can do to make me believe in it just because it's comfortable for me. And I think that's the way that I view AI. I think it's going to be incredibly destructive. I don't know how we're going to get out of this mess. There's absolutely no legislation around it. It's a monster that's going to grow exponentially, and we as humans are not going to be able to keep up. That thesis doesn't change just because I'm optimistic, because I can't change the way that I see it going.
I still don't see how AI actually kills us, though, because, like, do you...
Wait, then. We'll have this conversation in 10 years' time and it'll all be clear.
Because, like, is that, like, in terms of it, like, I don't know, taking over a Volkswagen factory, creating, like, robots with guns, or is it, like, a more subtler kind of vision that you see?
Oh, I think it could be many, many different ways. You take drones, for example, or drone armies. You could fly a drone in some way. You could have a little drone army that could fly in and just take somebody out, couldn't you? Or take out loads of wherever you are. I mean, if you can imagine it, it can happen. So you've got physically that they could end us, and then you've got socially where they could cause divides and war. Because we've already seen it with the division that we have when it came to even Brexit, for example, how the divide can happen. The algorithm can get you. You can keep being fed stuff that reinforces what you already believe without ever seeing outside of that echo chamber. And if you've got AI, it's going to take advantage of that, especially when it realizes how stupid we really are.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Do you not feel that it still needs, like, some form of prompt, like, because, like, where we are now, it's, like, generative, like, you give it something, then it uses, like, the way it basically, like, it takes the word that's just been inputted and think, like, what's the most suitable word, given the history of all these other words and data sets, to come next. So it's almost like it's not thinking like how we are, like humans. The reason why we're so destructive and war hungry is because, like, we have emotions, we have jealousy, we have envy, we have, like, anger, we have a lust for power where we want to feel like, I want to be more powerful than this other human over here. I need to make money. I need to start war. I want to steal a field. But, like, currently, like, the AI doesn't have any of these emotions. It just, like, looks at data and thinks, what's the most suitable word to input next? Or, okay, they've given me this words. What would be useful to put next? And there's no, like, I want to be the most powerful, or I want to have the most money, or anything like that, because those are all, like, extremely human emotions. And it's like, I guess, like, if there was a way to code emotion, or, like, to get something to feel, and you have, like, an actual being with an emotion, then I guess, like, that I could see is pretty scary. But, like, where we are now, it's just like, it just takes data and then gives out suitable data based on, like, the previous last few words, and almost, like, not beyond that. So I find it hard to see a vision where it feels, like, angry or powerful, or, like, there's a drone, I want to kill that human. Like, it doesn't feel anything towards that human. It doesn't really have any reason to kill it.
It can reason, can't it? So you can give it, say, an article and say, what do you think about this? So it can provide opinion, and it can.
But it's not his opinion. It's just other humans. Like, it just looks at that and thinks, okay, there's these things. This is what's been said in the past. This is what seems fairly suitable. It's not like, I think I'm right, I think I'm wrong. It's just like, this is what humans have thought, and then this is what seems most suitable to come out.
The thing is, I just think you don't know how it's going to think in the future. You don't know how it's going to be programmed, and you don't know what it's going to learn. And there's no legislation.
No, that is true. I mean, like, yeah, legislation, regulation is still catching up with Facebook and social media, let alone this new thing.
That's the thing. It won't catch up. They should have started this 10 years ago. And they knew it was on the horizon.
Interesting. Right. I feel like we can keep going. So I want to pivot slightly to CBDCs, which is obviously something else on the horizon, which, once again, I've heard kind of two views on. I've heard very negative things. I've also heard positive things, which would also surprise me. And so, yeah, I'd love to kind of hear your current thoughts on them and how close you think we are to CBDCs. And also, like, in your head, what actually is a CBDC? Because I'm sure there's also a few people who are not fully clear on that.
Okay, so what is this? They've piloted it around the world. This is a global initiative. I don't know why we've got a consultation. It's all smoke and mirrors. They've decided what they're going to do anyway. It's just to appease the public. By the way, I am an optimist. Everything you're asking me about things that I think are really, really bad. So that I'm going to sound really negative, but generally I'm quite optimistic. So it is coming. The consultation is nonsense. It's just to make you feel like you've got to say, but you don't really. They will jump on the bandwagon of cryptocurrencies and they'll say, we've got to get on board with this. It's the only way that we can have a global interaction with other countries, but it won't be on a blockchain. There's no way that they're going to. It will be a centralized system held by the Bank of England that can be fully controlled by government. So if you've got money that can be controlled by government, and we know that governments don't always make the best decisions, we could be heading towards an Orwellian nightmare. So, I mean, I know how they're going to sell it to us. And I know that they're gonna say, oh, it will be for financial inclusion. We can bank the unbanked. We can trade with other countries seamlessly and quickly and cheaply, and all these things can be done by Bitcoin. We don't need programmable money. We have a system there that's never been hacked, is super strong, a global collateral, can be sent to anybody with a mobile phone in a fraction of a second for a fraction of a penny. We don't need CBDCs. The only reason they want to implement them is for ultimate control. So that's another thing. Oh, you're the two subjects that I'm going to be all doom and gloom about.
Yeah, sorry about that. So you mentioned kind of control. In what way would a CBDC allow a government to control, I guess, what people spend on and that sort of thing?
So governments have agendas and they vary, and they're usually wrong. So, for example, a few years ago, they said you need to drive a diesel car. And then they forced everybody to go out and buy diesel cars, gave them incentives and told them that was the right path. And then a few years later, they went, no, diesel's terrible. Scrap that. Forget your diesel car. We're going to penalise you for having a diesel car. Now, if you had that initiative under CBDCs, they could actually control what you buy. And we don't know how that will look. We don't know whether or not it will be their mates' companies, and they say, "Oh, my mate's got this car company. You have to go and buy your car there," or if it's because they've got contracts with them. We just don't know because there's no transparency. But they will control our spending through government agendas, which will be wrong. Because we've seen it time and time again. They very rarely get anything right. We need less governmental control, not more.
I mean, I guess we have that to an extent with our regular bank accounts. I mean, sending money from your regular bank account to a crypto exchange or anything like that is getting harder and harder because you constantly get phone calls. Hey, you sure you're doing this? Or like, sorry, we don't allow you to do that.
With you?
Yeah, and it's kind of it's sort of reminding. It's a little reminder that you don't have full control of your money anyway. So I guess this is kind of that supercharged. I mean, I guess the other thing as well, like, do you think about the data that they can collect and like maybe like how they would do? I mean, like, because I guess universal base income is something that could come from that because it's so easy to kind of send money. I mean, yeah, what are your thoughts on all those sort of things?
So I think I actually had this thought the other day. When you walk around and you see people constantly on their phones and they're just on their phones, and then you think about the rise of AI and you think about how that's going to take away quite a few jobs. And you think, well, what are we going to do with all these people that don't have work to do? And then a universal basic income makes sense. You then tie that into the fact that they're addicted to their phones, and all of a sudden, the solution definitely looks like video games and drugs. They're just gonna get people more and more addicted to stuff, keep them out of the way, pay them money to keep quiet. And I do see, I see a society that I don't want to be in place, which is why I spend so much time doing what I do. I'm trying to raise awareness of CBDCs and that Bitcoin is the peaceful solution to opt out.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of good, I guess, that there is some form of a solution as well, in the form of you can opt out in a sense, because like before Bitcoin, you would have no choice whatsoever. No. Like, it doesn't really matter whether you think Bitcoin is good or bad. If you're not happy with sending money through a bank or something like that, and you want an alternative, you would previously have had no choice, and all of a sudden you do have a choice. I mean, what do you think the implications are on Bitcoin if we do get a CBDC? Because then, if there are more people flooding to that, they're probably going to do everything in their power to try and stop that. I mean, is that a scenario you ever think about?
Yeah, all the time. Obviously, choke point 2.0 is quite real. Although I'm not. I've heard some things since that have made me question whether or not the on-off ramps being stopped is due to choke point 2.0. I think there might be some new legislation that's going to be coming in with the FCA that will mean that if you get scammed with an exchange or crypto, the bank has to pay you back, like they usually do when there's some sort of fraud. So I think the banks are becoming more cautious about where you can send their money, because if it goes wrong, they'll be liable. So on-off ramps, I'm not sure if that is part of choke point 2.0 or whether or not it's part of this new FCA legislation that's going to be coming in. But there's a real possibility that they're going to clamp down on it. If they feel like they don't have the control that they feel that they need, then they will make it harder. But then that's when game theory comes into play. Because if there are other countries that accept it, then people will just move there. They'll vote with their feet. So governments have got to be really careful about how they play this. It's a very fine balancing act. And the way that I look at Bitcoin, we can't stop CBDCs. They're coming. But in what form? That is yet still to be decided. And if we have Bitcoin there waiting in the wings, it will be like an opposition party that essentially keeps them honest.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that way of thinking. I mean, I guess there's always, like you see that already with El Salvador and people kind of flooding there. Whether you think it was good move, bad move, people are like, oh, they accept Bitcoin, I want to move there. And so I guess then if you want to opt out, it is doable. And then it becomes do you want to miss out on the productivity of those sorts of people, or do you not want to miss out on the productivities of those sorts of people? I've also heard that kind of like CBDCs are good because like the way payments work, say in the UK, like I was speaking to a woman who now works for a crypto company, but she did work for UK payments clearing and that sort of area. And she was like, it's so inefficient, it's so bad, that a CBDC will be refreshing. And the other thing in terms of like thinking that like, oh, your data is going to be lost, like we've already lost the battle for our own data. Like all your data is already pretty much shared anyway. The battle for that is lost. So if anything, that a CBDC will just be an improvement of what we already have. I mean, is that something? Because I know Raoul Powell as well, he's actually kind of for CBDCs in a weird way. And yeah, do you have any thoughts on that?
When the government hold all your data and it's centralized, highly, highly centralized, and they don't understand cryptography, they don't understand security, and it's hosted on something like Amazon Web Services, like it's a recipe for disaster. They don't know what they're doing. There's no way a CBDC is going to solve what we're doing. However, there is a system that has never been hacked, fully encrypted, global, and does everything that we need it to do. We don't need a centralized database to do this, to improve the financial system, which the traditional financial system is very clunky. Absolutely. But the solution is not a CBDC.
Solutions Bitcoin then in that kind of world. And do you think so I see like Bitcoin playing definitely part bit long term. Like I love it as like a sort of it's like a fire exit to our system. It's kind of when everything kind of comes crashing down here. But then at the moment, like practically, it's still not that useful on a day to day. It's like an insurance policy, and it's I guess like it's also like an active decision to say, hey, I'm actually going to move some of my wealth into this alternate system. I mean, do you think about like one argument that gets thrown about a lot is volatility and all this kind of stuff? Like if you don't have that much money, you can't risk like your money being something that fluctuates so much. And so how do you think about people who maybe want to participate in this, but then are kind of scared of that and kind of question it for those reasons?
You should question everything. I think they're very sensible people, these people that question it. So it's a 14-year-old asset. I mean, it's come a long way in 14 years, but it's a baby asset. So, of course, it's going to be volatile. We're still on that adoption curve. And I would say that you should definitely never invest money that you need to get out quickly, because you do have to ride that volatility. It's just something that you're going to have to accept until adoption takes off further. So you need to have at least a 2 to 8 year time horizon potentially. It can't be something that you go, right, I'm going to put it in. But it depends on the country that you live in. I mean, one other thing that I've noticed that really concerns me is the financial privilege that we have in this country, especially because we haven't seen the type of inflation that Argentina, for example, have experienced. When we look at it, we think, oh, it's lost its value, but it wouldn't have lost its value if you're in a country that was suffering from hyperinflation. And a lot of people that we know possibly are relatively comfortable, they're surviving. They have no need to look into this because the system so far has worked for them. But that might actually lead to their own demise because they haven't needed to look into an alternative. They don't understand why an alternative is necessary. So, for example, when I try and explain Bitcoin to my friends, they just glaze over. They don't care. However, when I explained it to my hairdresser, who is really struggling to pay the rent, look after her daughter, go to work and pay her bills, she got it straight away because she felt it. She knows the system's broken. She knows that she's done everything that is expected of her. She's gone and trained as a hairdresser. She works. She is a part of this system, but it's screwing her over every which way. But she got it straight away. You speak to someone with financial privilege, and they don't get it because they don't need to. So it depends on your situation, your own personal situation.
I want to quickly touch on the kind of the country aspect, because obviously you live in the UK at the moment, and yeah, there are a lot of things to kind of favor, like the CBDC. I mean, are there countries that would you yourself consider moving, and where would you consider moving to and when?
Good question. I've thought about this a lot. And in actual fact, if it gets much worse, I've already started thinking about the countries that I would move to. They're different to the ones that I would have moved to 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I'd have probably said something like Canada. But seeing what they've been getting up to recently, I don't think that's the kind of democracy that I want to live in. But it would be a Bitcoin-friendly country. It would be somewhere that accepted the innovation, understood it, and appreciated it.
So I guess on the top of that list at the moment is El Salvador, really.
Yeah, but not everyone can move to El Salvador, so we need some other alternatives. But it would be a country like that, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trek from where we are here, and I mean it is still a tiny country as well. We definitely, we need. I mean, I'm sure there'll be more coming on board. I mean, this is the other thing as well. So I wonder, like everyone's like this year, like maybe 3 more countries will like make Bitcoin legal tender and this kind of thing. And do you think that without a bear market, a country will come out and basically make it legal tender? Or do you think it takes a bull market for a country to want to ride the trend and sort of to announce it?
The reason why El Salvador, in my opinion, has been started their journey into Bitcoin and has been, depending on who you talk to, successful, is because it was small and it had nothing to lose. So it will only be the small, unstable countries that dip their toe in the water. I'm not sure if a bull or a bear market will help that. I hadn't thought of it in those terms before. I think it just depends on how much that country is struggling and how much it needs an alternative.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wanna pivot slightly to kind of you and what you're working on, because obviously you are someone who is trying to, as you say, you're not just a pessimist, you're also an optimist, and you're trying to drive change. And yeah, I'd love to hear on kind of, because I know you've left your more traditional job, and like you're now working on your own things. And yeah, I'd love to hear what it's been like for you, one, making that decision and kind of leaving your old job, and then afterwards what you're up to now.
So it's very difficult to leave the stability of a job that you get paid for monthly. But it's also very difficult sitting there and looking around and seeing that everybody's time poor and they're not paying attention. And that terrified me. I didn't want to be one of those people. So once the penny dropped, that the job was giving me money, but I was swapping my time for money and actually getting very little back in return. Because money, it can be worthless. Time is what's precious. So I felt an immense amount of guilt, the world that my children were going to inherit. Not just my children, all young people, like you included. Like I hate it. I can't stand the world that you guys have inherited. And you've got the age group, like the boomers, that, and it's not their fault. They were just going through life like everybody else, but they got the best of everything. And they've left behind a world that is not fit for purpose. And I remember always trying to bring up my daughter, thinking that she was going to be the one that changed the world. And I was like, come on, Els, you've got to think of this. And then she went, Mummy, why don't you do it? I'm like, oh, because I'm bringing you up to do it. I'm training you to do it. And she was like, well, it'll be too late then. You get on with it. And that really kind of resonated, because I thought, God, why am I preaching to you? I should be doing something about this. So yeah, I did. I left my job. I didn't know how I was going to earn money. I still don't really know how I'm going to earn money. Luckily, I was able to take redundancy, and I've kind of just been living off that while I figure it out. But I write, and I try and put as much factual information out into the mainstream media, because there's so much misinformation out there. It makes me mad. And I've also started a role as the head of mining and sustainability for Bitcoin Policy UK. So what I'll be doing with that is I'll be trying to educate people and teach them about the benefits of Bitcoin mining, because we know that all we hear are bad things. But really, Bitcoin mining has the opportunity to help us with although I do think that all the government agendas are just plucked out of the air and they're nonsense, but let's play the game. It will help with their ESG agendas, and it will help us drive our renewables to be almost carbon negative. So, anything where you can plug it into a source, anywhere, an energy source, anywhere where it is, whether it be landfill or methane on a farm, or goodness, anywhere where there's an excess of energy that you cannot use for any other option, and you can stick a portable mine on it and turn that energy into money, you're then stopping that from being released into the atmosphere. So, for example, methane is a bit of a problem. It's 80 times more warming than CO2. And how they deal with methane currently is they burn it off to create CO2, because CO2 is less harmful.
A lot of the times it's not even burned off. Like on landfill sites, it's often just left. Farming sites as well, it's often just left, because it's just too much effort. There's no incentive to capture and burn it.
No. So we've now got something that can not only stop it from entering the atmosphere and deal with it properly, but can then create a circular economy and turn that into money. I mean, it blows my mind the possibilities that will lead us to, but it will only happen if we can show our government and businesses working examples of this. So heading up mining and sustainability, part of my role will be to create as many proof of concepts as possible so we can point to these circular economies and where they're capturing the methane and say, look, you can turn your problem into money. What's not to like? And you can secure a global network with a neutral money that can be sent to anybody in seconds for pennies. I mean, there's so many wins to this. It's unbelievable. But it's a 14-year-old asset. People are just catching up, and we need to make people aware.
What a quote from your daughter as well. Why don't you do it? That's like, I mean, that's amazingly life-changing in a way. That's like whiplash in a sense. But no, that sounds really exciting. I mean, what are you guys? How are you? Have you had any sort of contact with councils, governments, or anything like that so far? And if so, like, what's the reception been like?
Well, we only launched last Thursday.
Okay.
So we're working on it, but we will be attending the APBGs, and I've been working with a guy called Freddie New, who's heading up the policy subcommittee for Bitcoin UK. And so when there's any consultations on either CBDCs or crypto assets or anything like that, we'll be responding to those so that somebody who's in the know can actually respond to these consultations. Because often the government will say, well, we put things out there and nobody says anything. It's like, you've got a point. So we're going to be doing things like that, and just doing everything that we can to make people understand that this can be the solution. We need to fix the money, and then we can fix the world. And through fixing the money, we can fix the world.
You mentioned proof of concepts there in kind of, you needing to collect a lot of evidence. And I know there's a lot of kind of small projects and sort of communities that are being built around this in kind of like a minor way to how like a gold mine would lead to a community around that gold mine. And you're kind of seeing similar things with pockets of energy in Bitcoin mining. And I was wondering, are there any kind of small like proof of concepts that you're particularly following and are especially excited about?
Yeah, so home miners is something that we're really looking into. We're looking into a way that we can create a starter kit for people that want to mine at home, say off solar panels, so that they can create their own little circular economy. So if we can get people to mine at home, just get a little miner that, and it feeds from their solar panels, and they can either choose to send the energy back to the grid, or that they can choose to mine Bitcoin with it. And they can do it depending on the price of Bitcoin or how much energy that they're producing at that time. So say in summer, when they've got an excess of energy, that they can actually manage their own household in terms of what's better for them. Is it better to get the feed-in tariff and send it back, or is it better to mine Bitcoin and create this? Because when you mine Bitcoin, you can even heat your home with that. I mean, have you seen those home heaters from Bitcoin miners? The ingenuity in this industry is mind-blowing. So if we can start small and we can get people to start mining from home and with off renewable energy that they're creating on their little patch of land, we can show that across the UK, and you can start expanding out, and then businesses can start to see the promise of this absolutely insane energy infrastructure that we have that is not being utilized.
That'd be awesome. I think we're thinking of just moving our water panels and switching over to solar. And so the question then is like, what batteries, like how do you kind of save the excess energy? So you might get like a small electric car. But then the other thing is also, is there an easy way to set up a little Bitcoin miner and try and get a way for it to then go into there whenever you have excess energy?
Do you want to be one of our proof of concepts then?
I'd love to be.
also then put you on the map. So another project that I'm working on is to show where all these home miners are. And on BTC maps, have you come across that, where it shows all the merchants where you can use Lightning?
Yeah, a while ago. I don't think I've actually actively used it, but I've seen pictures of it.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is with a chap called Nathan Day who runs BTC Maps, and I'm also working with some amazing people in the energy, Daniel Batten and Margot.
Oh yeah, I'm speaking with him on Friday actually.
Yeah, so we're working on this thing where we can plot where all these places are to show that it's happening and to show that it's working. So you could maybe get, if you decide to, if we get this little starter kit sorted and it explains how you do it and it makes it really clear and you've got everything that you need to join all the dots, we can put you on the map.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. No, I mean, where do you think you are on a starter kit like that? Because obviously the tricky thing is, if you've got maybe even four sinks. So I guess like maybe you've got your car, you've got your actual battery, you've got your general mains, and then you've got a Bitcoin miner. I guess it's finding a way or something that can basically switch on and off in between all of those in the most efficient way.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what's so brilliant about mining, and that's why it helps so well with grid stability, because there's nothing else that you can just shut off like that and allow the grid to. So, for example, in Texas, when they had that big freeze and they were able to shut off the Bitcoin mining almost instantaneously and send that energy back to the grid so that it could be used. And that's the thing. It can take the excess energy during the day when people aren't using it. So, for example, we have an excess of solar. Usually, if you've got solar panels, you have an excess of solar during the day when you don't need solar. So when you're at work and you're not using the hairdryer, and you're not using the kettle, and you're not cooking. So what do you do with that excess energy during the day when you're not using it? You can either send it to the grid, but then if everybody's doing that, it's going to overload the grid. So it's a really good way of stabilizing excess energy and giving it to the grid when they need it and then using it when they don't.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, because obviously everyone's going to have excess energy at the same time in the UK. It'll be either when it's really sunny or like when everyone decides, that they're turning off or leaving the house or something. And so in terms of giving energy back to the grid, everyone's basically doing it at the times when when the grid doesn't want the energy. So it's actually not that desirable, which makes it even more important to have an alternate place to kind of drive it. That sounds.
But you can choose. You can choose based on, and then if people are managing their own energy in their own houses, that's quite powerful as well.
We're coming up on the hour now, and I don't want to take too much of your time. So I'd love to do you have any kind of closing, actionable, or more just insightful thoughts to leave with the listener? And after that as well, where can people find you?
So if anyone's listening to this, I would just encourage them to research Bitcoin. It's a journey that you have to go on yourself. Nobody can tell you where to start or what you should look at, but just do some research and go down that rabbit hole. And you can find me on Twitter at Decentrasuze. Do you have show notes? Do you do that? Do you put links down?
Yeah, I'll stick it in there. I'll stick it.
I won't bother spelling it because that would be annoying.
And you mentioned books. So just to close off then, what is your favorite Bitcoin book?
I don't know. See,
it's hard, isn't it? I'm never fully sure which one I like. Bitcoin Standard is like the easiest, but I'm always like, is there a more? It's quite hard. Sometimes, like if people don't have that much interest, it's a bit meaty.
And also he's got some quite odd views that I think sometimes can turn people off and that are not very helpful. I don't know. I don't know if I could recommend a book as such, but understanding money. So what I'm reading at the moment is The Creature of Jekyll Island, and it's all about how the Fed was created. So we think that the system isn't working, but it is. It's working for them. It's working exactly how it was designed to work. And once you understand that the system is not designed for us, you can't unsee it. You start seeing things in a different way. So I think if you you don't necessarily even have to start by learning about Bitcoin. You just have to start by learning about money, and it will naturally lead you there.
What was that book called?
The Creature of Jekyll Island.
The Creature of Jekyll Island. Awesome. Thank you. Well, Susie, it's been great to speak again. It's a shame that we won't have a chance to meet in person in May. But yeah, it's been great chatting to you now anyway. And yeah, it sounds awesome what you guys are doing. I'm going to look forward to kind of keeping in tune and staying up and seeing what you guys develop. And yeah, wish you the best of luck. If there's any way that we can help, please let us know.
Amazing. Oh, well, I'll be sending you the home miner kit.
That would be brilliant. Send me everything on that.
Awesome. Oh, thanks for having me, and I'll speak to you soon.
That sounds good, Susie. Have an absolutely brilliant day, and we'll speak soon.
See you later. Bye.
See you.